You've overstayed your welcome. You'll need to find somewhere else after New Year's, Clara said, her hand steady as she sliced into the roast I had bought earlier that morning. Her voice was not sharp, not trembling. It was even practiced, like she had repeated the line in her head until it lost all warmth. My fork hovered in midair, suspended above a mound of garlic mashed potatoes I had mashed myself only hours earlier. Across the table, my son Richard cleared his throat but said nothing. He didn't even look at me. He just focused on cutting his meat into smaller bites. The room didn't pause. The conversation continued. My granddaughter Nora asked for more rolls. Someone laughed at a joke from the far end of the table. And it was as if I had ceased to exist right there at the holiday meal. I lowered my fork carefully. The napkin on my lap, embroidered, bought during a summer clearance sale, felt heavy. The chair I sat in was one I had ordered during the lockdown when their old ones were falling apart. The curtains Clara had chosen hung neatly, but I had paid for those too, after she insisted the old blinds made her depressed. I looked around that table at the people I had fed, clothed, and quietly carried through 2 long years. And not a single one of them looked back at me. I rose slowly, deliberately. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I didn't remind them of the Wi-Fi bill in my name or the gas payments I kept on autopay, or how Clara liked to keep the thermostat high enough to walk barefoot in the middle of winter. I walked to the hallway and picked up the small silver gift bag I had tucked under the tree, the one with my name on the tag. No one had touched it. No one would. Back in my room, I placed it on the bed. Inside was an ornament I had ordered weeks ago, a handmade piece with their initials carved into birch. I still had the receipt in my email right next to the electric bill I had just paid. I sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, not shocked but resigned. Nothing had really changed. I had only stopped pretending not to see it. Later, when everyone had gone to bed, I walked through the house. Not to say goodbye, but to look closely at what I was leaving. The kitchen light glowed. Clara's half-full glass of wine sat in the sink, the same glass from the set I bought last spring because she had shattered one of her originals and cried over the incomplete look. In the cabinet, the blender gleamed, new and quiet, replacing the rattling one I'd replaced when she complained about her smoothies. The modem blinked softly in the hallway. Internet registered under my name, bills paid from my account. I checked the thermostat. 74 degrees, warm enough for Clara's bare feet. I wandered into the guest bathroom, the one I rarely used. The medicine cabinet held a bottle with Clara's name. She told me once it was for sinus issues. But 2 weeks ago, I overheard her giggling on the phone about her holiday lips. It wasn't sinus medication. It was filler, covered under the family insurance plan. It's one I had added her to when she couldn't get coverage at her part-time job. Everywhere I looked, the house whispered reminders of my role, my quiet funding of their lives. Richard had told me at the start that it wouldn't be forever, just until he found work again. Then it became just until Clara finishes her program. Then it became the new normal. 2 years had passed. 2 years of groceries, Nora's preschool tuition, even their streaming subscriptions. 2 years of disappearing piece by piece. My place, my presence. Back in the living room, the tree twinkled. Even the skirt beneath it had been mine, purchased during an after-Christmas sale years ago. On the coffee table lay the latest utility bill, unopened. I picked it up and carried it with me. That's when I found it. I had been searching for a lint roller in the laundry room cabinet, sifting through mismatched towels and detergent bottles, when my hand brushed against a manila folder. I pulled it free, expecting another of Richard's forgotten receipts. But the label stopped me. Petition for evaluation. Proposed guardian. Richard L. Holt. I opened it with hands that already knew what they would find. Draft forms. A petition to declare me incompetent, incapable of managing my affairs. The date on the cover letter was from 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks before Clara's announcement at the dinner table. 2 weeks before I covered the December property tax, like I always did. They weren't just waiting for me to leave. They were preparing to strip me down legally, financially, until nothing of mine was mine. I should have felt broken. I should have collapsed. Instead, I stood in silence, numb with recognition. This was not betrayal newborn. It was only the final mask slipping. I carried the folder to my room and placed it beside the unopened gift bag. Then I powered on my laptop. One by one, I opened tabs. Bank account, internet, gas, electric, water. With deliberate clicks, I ended the auto payments, removed myself from each account. Watched the confirmation screens flicker back like lifeboats. My phone buzzed. A message from Richard. Don't forget the insurance renewal is due on the 27th. Can you handle that again? I stared at the words, then took a screenshot. I dragged it into a new folder next to the petition he had thought I'd never find. The only task left was to pack. That night, just after 9, a knock at my door. Richard didn't wait for me to answer. He stepped inside, eyes narrowing at the half-packed suitcase. I hope you're not planning to make a scene, he said. Clara's already stressed. And it's Christmas. His eyes darted to the manila folder on the bed, now tucked under folded sweaters. This doesn't have to be dramatic, he added, softer. You know, this isn't personal. We just need our space. We're trying to start fresh. I said nothing. I could have reminded him that the mortgage had been covered with transfers from my account, or that the fridge he stocked so casually with imported cheeses had been bought with my savings. But this wasn't about facts. It was about what he thought I would never dare say. He left quickly, closing the door with the same careful quiet he used when Nora was asleep. Later, I walked into the living room. Clara passed by with her phone, laughing at something on the screen, not acknowledging me. On the rug, Nora sat cross-legged, arranging cookies for Santa. She looked up, her little voice curious. Grandma, why don't you have a stocking? My throat went dry. I forgot to hang one, I said gently, but I hadn't forgotten. There was no stocking for me. Last year, Clara had ordered embroidered ones for everyone, even the dog. She said the mantle only fit for when the 5th stocking arrived. Manit never left the box. By the morning after Christmas, my bags were ready. I carried only what mattered: 2 suitcases, a box of files, and the silver gift bag no one opened. I left no note, only canceled the last payment, locked the door, and drove. 2 hours later, I pulled into my oldest friend Lena's driveway. She stood on the porch with 2 mugs of coffee, hair tied up the way she always wore it when something serious needed mending. I hadn't told her much, just texted, "Can I come?" "You're safe now," she said simply, ushering me inside at her kitchen table. With the scent of strong coffee filling the room, I told her everything. Clara's words, Richard's silence, the petition, the unopened stocking, the folder, the lies. Lena didn't interrupt. She didn't offer excuses. She simply listened, and when I finished, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "My guest room's yours," she said. No timeline, just rest. That night, in her quiet house, I opened my laptop and did what I should have done months ago. I transferred my funds into a new credit union account, filed a fraud alert, changed every password, called my credit card company to flag suspicious charges. I called the insurance office and removed Richard's family from my plan. No tears, no guilt. Just business. By dawn, every tie to that house had been cut. As Lena handed me the spare key to her place, I felt something shift. They had called me weak. They had treated me like a burden. But I was the one who turned the lights off. And tomorrow they would learn just how dark their home could be without me. I didn't need to be there to see how it unfolded. I could imagine it clearly, down to the hour. The Wi-Fi went first. Richard had a client meeting that morning. I pictured him sitting at the dining table, tie knotted over his pressed shirt, pajama pants hidden beneath as the screen froze. No connection. No account access. By noon, the thermostat defaulted to factory settings. Without my login, the smart system reset itself, and the house cooled quickly. 70 degrees. Then 68. By afternoon, Clara would be pacing barefoot, complaining of drafts. At 2:15, she called her pharmacy. The refill was denied. No coverage. Her voice must have risen. sharp as it always did when life refused to bend. But there was no mistake. They were no longer on my plan. By 3, my phone buzzed. A call from Richard. Then Clara. I didn't open either. The first message I did see wasn't private. It was on a local community page Lena showed me while we folded laundry. Urgent, does anyone know how to restore power if you're not the account holder? Posted by Clara, desperate. I read it 3 times. No context. No humility. Just the panic of someone realizing the lights were never theirs to command. At 5:11, Richard sent a longer text. We need to talk. This is childish. I tapped and held the message. Block number. The silence that followed was cleaner than anything they had ever offered me. They thought they had removed me. But I was never just a guest. I was the foundation. And without me, the house they called theirs was nothing but cold walls. 2 days later, I was buying groceries when Lena called. He's here, she said. Your car. Richard just pulled up with it. I froze. I knew how he had found the Keitha spare tucked behind the laundry room panel years ago. When I returned, car was still in Lena's driveway. Richard leaned against it, arms crossed like a sulking teenager. I figured you wouldn't mind, he said, casual. You don't really use it. It belongs to the family anyway. The words landed with a thud. I didn't argue. I stepped inside, opened my folder of records, and pulled out the title. My name, clear. No cosigners. No family. Then I called the police. When the officer arrived, Richard tried to play calm. I let her live in my house. We covered her groceries, her meds, everything, and now she's turning her back on us. The officer didn't waver. Sir, unless you have legal ownership of this vehicle, I'll need the keys. A pause. Then Richard dropped them into the officer's hand. Neighbors peeked from porches, feigning chores. No one spoke, but I felt the shift. I slid into the driver's seat, leather still warm from his body, and something inside me settled. Not triumph. Not revenge. Just return. It was Lena's nephew Jordan who tipped me off next. He worked part-time at a repair counter near 4th and Main. He'd gone into a pawn shop nearby, hunting for a vintage lens. Instead, he found my camera. He sent a photo. The scratch by the shutter, the worn strap. The initials I had carved. The shop owner said it had been brought in with an old laptop. Clara's ID was on the intake form. I didn't ask to see the footage. I didn't need to. An hour later, my phone buzzed. We needed groceries. You owe us anyway, Clara texted. That was the last straw. Not because she stole, but because she believed I still owed her. After all the bills, the taxes, the tuition. She still thought I was indebted. I blocked her number, opened my notebook, and crossed out the word receipts. In its place, I wrote evidence. They hadn't just stolen. They had counted on my silence. The courthouse was quieter than I expected. Not the hush of fear, but the solemn weight of resolution. I carried everything: loan transfers, joint payments, insurance statements, the deed addendum Richard had signed when we refinanced. The clerk glanced at the stack. You came prepared, she said. Double quotes, yes, I answered. Restraining orders were filed first. Theft, harassment, the damage to my car door, all documented. Officer Malik submitted his statement from the pawn shop recovery. Then came small claims court. Richard and Clara arrived looking worn, their clothes rumpled, eyes shadowed. They said little. They didn't need to. My documents spoke louder. Bank records. Emails where Richard had written, "Thanks for covering the mortgage again, lifesaver." The judge reviewed everything, then looked up over her glasses. This establishes partial ownership. I'm awarding the plaintiff 50% of the property. I didn't flinch. I didn't smile. I just nodded. Outside, Richard tried to speak. You could move back. We can work this out. But I wasn't searching for a room. I was searching for peace. 3 weeks later, I sold my share quietly to a developer. A clean cash deal. By March 2nd, the eviction notice went out. Not from me, from a company. Clara posted online, calling it sudden unfair. I didn't comment. Let them keep their story. I hadn't disappeared. I had stepped out from behind the curtain, leaving them to face the stage they built. My new apartment was small. No grand table, no fireplace. But every item inside was mine. My blankets, my dishes, my keys. On a Sunday afternoon, there was a knock. Nora stood there, cheeks pink from the cold, clutching a tin of cookies. Lena waited in the car. "I made these with Mom," she said shyly, "but I wanted to give them to you myself." Her boots squeaked as she explored the room like it was a hidden fort. "You don't have a tree?" she said. "No," I smiled. "But I have lights." I clicked the switch, and the string along the window glowed. Her eyes lit up. We sat at the table. She ate a cookie and told me about her school program. "Do you miss the big house?" she asked. I sipped my coffee. "I miss some memories. But this place sits better." She nodded. "It feels like you're not afraid here." Before she left, she pulled a folded paper from her coat. A drawing crooked stars, two figures beneath glowing lights. "This is your stocking," she said, pointing to a shape above the fireplace she'd drawn. "Next year, I'll hang it for real." I knelt to hug her, her scent of cinnamon and crayons wrapping around me as she disappeared down the hall, hand in hand with Lena. I pinned her drawing to the fridge. The apartment was small, but it was mine. Built with love, not permission. And for the first time in years, I was home.